Yes, I like to talk a lot.
Cool, thank you.
Great.
I don't really make conversation very much.
I make conversation usually by asking people questions and just generally being, I don't know, making yourself open to people.
How? I'll try to find common ground. Take a guess at what someone might be interested in. Just get it started.
I like to make conversation by asking a lot of questions. I think that's the best way to have conversation. Shows that you have interest in a person and what they have to talk about.
How do I make conversation? Well, I tend to ask somebody like what they're doing at a given time, or like if they might be wearing a band t-shirt that I like, and I'm like, oh, I like Panic at the Disco as well. Yeah, so something like that.
I usually start a conversation with, hello, my name is blah blah blah, but if I already know them, I'd say, hey, how was your day?
Maybe making some reference that's familiar between me and the person. If not, if I don't know the person, I would perhaps offer my hand and shake their hands and say, how are you? I am Scott.
I normally start conversation by making a joke and trying to break the tension, because when you first meet someone there's a lot of like, hi.
Sort of the same. Yes. Just being open to whatever they say and just generally just say yes rather than no. It's kind of like that. The more you say yes, the more comfortable the other person feels. So.
How would you start a conversation? Again, just by approaching them, asking how their day is, comment on what they're wearing. It's really anything.
How are you?
I can find conversations uncomfortable if I know there's going to be conflict. So if I know that I'm going to be disagreeing with somebody and I have to disagree with them because I feel that it's important, whether it's for practical reasons or something more ethical reasons, those conversations, especially if I know the conversation's coming up, I can find that challenging. So conflict, I'm petrified of conflict.
Starting a conversation that makes me uncomfortable. If they mention my brother, yeah.
I think that conversation is important to me because you need to be able to communicate in like a nice way.
Yeah, conversation is important to me because it's how we relate to each other. It's how we connect. It's everything. Conversation is what makes us human in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think conversation is very important because it is the most common way of communicating with the people around you.
Yeah, conversation's important. It's, I suppose, how you get to know people.
Yeah, I mean, conversation is communication, and communication is key to everything.
Yes, very much.
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes depends on the reaction from the other person.
I find it easier with people who I'm new with because I don't think they'll judge me as much.
I'm not probably the most social person ever, so a lot of the time it's the other person.
With certain people, yes, because I'm not sure how to, like when you're starting a conversation, I'm not very good at starting it because I don't know what to relate to them about to start a conversation. So kind of like, hi, how's your day? That's not going to go anywhere, is it?
I don't know, like I feel like I can't find things to talk about sometimes.
Not really. With certain people it can be difficult if they're not contributing to the conversation. But I've grown up in a household where conversation is like, you learn how to have a conversation. So not really, I don't really struggle with conversation.
Do you find conversation hard? Sometimes it can depend on the person. Sometimes they don't want to open up, or they don't want to communicate, which is fine. Sometimes it's really easy.
I find conversation can be hard in circumstances where you don't know people and you don't have an easy way to sort of start a conversation. So if you're in a new job, generally you have to talk to people, so people aren't going to be put out by you asking them questions, and that's a great way to meet people and learn who people are and what they're about. If you're at a party, that can be awkward. If you're the one person who doesn't know anybody else, that can be really awkward. But you've just got to ask. You just got to introduce yourself and say hi. I think.
Not really. I'm kind of an extrovert. Mostly.
No.
I love it.
Thank you.
3, 2, 1.
Oh wait, it's on. What? What?
You
Wait,
ask
turn
the
it
question.
off. No, it's on.
Oh, we'll turn it off. So, how do you make conversation?
Please.
Please.
Wait, can I?